Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I would now like to invite Amy Garg to the podium to introduce our guest speaker.
Good evening, teachers, graduates, family, and friends. It is my privilege to introduce this year's guest speaker, Dr. Bernard Imasley. Dr. Imasley, originally from Switzerland, is an author and journalist who has worked as South Asia correspondent for the New Journal of Zurich. Dr. Imasley is the author of Goodbye to Gandhi and Foreign Correspondent, 50 Years of Reporting South Asia. He holds a doctorate from the University of Zurich in linguistics and anthropology. He also taught at the university before joining the Swiss Foreign Service for economic affairs. This occupation led him to Geneva, Bern, London, and finally New Delhi, where he has found a love for India. He currently resides in Alibag and holds the position of advisor for many foundations that work on the socio-economic development of India. We are honored to have him address the class of 2014. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Bernard Imasley.
Dear graduates, friends, let me start by thanking the school for the honor to talk to you this evening, to the principal, Craig, to the students' graduation committee and its mentors, which has prepared for the event, and to my friends Indira Chandrasekhar and James Prunder, who I suspect have been plotting this little coup behind my back. They are sitting somewhere here. My credentials for this are somewhat suspect. As you've just heard, I'm neither an Indian nor an American, but a Swiss. I think my accent also gives me away. And I have not graduated from the American school, leave alone a school in America. The closest I've come to an American school is some 25 years ago, when our daughter Anisha studied at the American Embassy School in Delhi. I was then posted as a diplomat at the Swiss Embassy, but we left Delhi before Anisha could graduate and before I could gain some insight which could have served me when preparing for this talk. So I had to rely on some guesswork, one of which was to assume that you would be wearing a black gown, which I now see you're not. I hung on to this tiny bit of misinformation, because it reminded me of my own graduation in Switzerland, which in German is called Matura. But the color, if it had been black, would have been the only similarity there. I was graduating from a boarding school housed in a Benedictine monastery in a place called Einsiedeln, some 60 kilometers from Zurich. We were wearing black not only for the graduation ceremony, but had been in black for all the 8 years of our, what we call, gymnasium, right from age 12. And those black things weren't really gowns, but cassocks, making us look like little monks. Or as a Zurich walla within my earshot, once, of course a Protestant, once said, they are the offspring of monks and nuns. My graduation happened at a time, the late 60s, when there was a lot of social and intellectual unrest and churning all over our Western world. There were protests against the Vietnam War, there was bra-burning feminism, anti-nuclear marches. In the far-flung village of Einsiedeln, my graduating class was determined to disprove the notion that we were hermits. Einsiedeln means literally a hermitage. We decided to celebrate our graduation with a bang. We took off our cassocks, put them on a heap, and burned the whole lot. There was shock and awe over this auto da fe, as you can imagine. But since we had already graduated, the monks couldn't expel us. In fact, they took the hint. In the very next school year, cassocks stopped being the compulsory uniform, and within a year or two, they disappeared altogether. Reminiscing about those days, I thought of another similarity between my school and yours. But here too, the similarity hides a dissimilarity. As your school is surrounded by high walls, ours was too. They were not high-tech with CCTVs and wire-fenced, but high they were, a good 15 feet. There, however, the similarity ends. Your walls are meant to prevent outsiders from getting in. Ours were there to keep us insiders from going out. It's a big difference. Your school provides you comfort, security, a home away from home, even. And while you are all day scholars, most of us were boarders. We called our school building the box, and that is how we felt most often, boxed in. We did have some day scholars, though, from the village, and they proved useful when a few of us kids wanted to escape. From the other side of the wall, they provided farmers' carts onto which we could jump down, sometimes a ladder, and they looked after our cassocks while we hitchhiked to Zurich to watch a movie. Our hermitage wasn't really a hermitage, and even less a prison. It was a monastery of the Benedictine order, as I said, an order which considers manual labor to be a form of prayer. So it had stables, horses, cows, pigs, fields of wheat and barley, ponds with ducks and geese, large vegetable plots, and there was a church, a beautiful Baroque basilica, in which we sang Gregorian chants. Yet we felt, at that pubescent age, boxed in, locked in, not only by the walls, but even more by the stringent punishments, should we be caught climbing them. So from early on, crossing boundaries became ingrained in me, just as I imagined that outside the walls and not inside of them lay the world of promise, challenge, and bliss. Looking back today at that time, and I want to thank you again for forcing me to do this, I think that this boundary crossing became a fundamental impulse for my life choices. I married a woman from India, in fact from Bombay. She's here today. Much against my family's wishes, and even more against the wishes of my wife's family. And I came to live in India, preferring its chaos and promise to the comforts and inbuilt compromises of Switzerland. More than that, I changed my career paths several times, and sometimes before I knew that I needed and wanted to change. I was an academic, as you might have heard, on the road to a tenure at the University of Zurich, when I decided that I wanted to become a diplomat. After 15 years as a diplomat, I decided to quit this promising career just when I was one posting away from actually becoming an ambassador. I became a lowly journalist. Worse, I became a freelance correspondent. My diplomatic colleagues were aghast that I could give up such a prestigious profession. The person who rubbed in this disapproval was my boss, then the Assistant Secretary of State at the Swiss Foreign Office. He kindly arranged for a farewell drinks party, but then he raised a peculiar toast. He recounted one of the Grimm brothers' fairy tales, called Lucky John. It is the story of a young man who has finished his long training with a master. The master gives him a parting gift, a block of solid gold. While he's on his way home, he encounters a man on a horse. John, tired from walking, tells the rider how wonderful it must be to sit on a high chair and to be carried forward, while he has to schlep this heavy stone. The horseman suggests that they exchange the horse for the gold, and John is overjoyed. But after a while, the horse throws him off. He's helped by a farmer who comes along with his cow. John is envious of the man and his companion. Here is an animal which gives you milk when you're thirsty, cheese when you're hungry. The farmer suggests a deal, and they exchange their animals. The story continues with similar bargains, all seemingly very favorable to John. The cow is exchanged for a pig, the pig for a goose, the goose for a grindstone. Every time, John gets luckier and luckier. When he finally comes to rest on the low wall encircling a deep well, he accidentally pushes the stone into the water. A wave of relief and happiness washes over John. The story ends with the sentence, "No person under the sun is as happy as I am," John exclaimed. With a light heart and free of all ballast, he skipped along on the road until he was at home with his mother. There was a lot of laughter, as you can imagine, at the cheeky toast of Ambassador Blancard. But I was happy to hear it, and I said so in my response. Though it wasn't literally true, because then I would have probably actually landed in the Hermitage of Einsiedeln, I could identify with its message. Do what you really want to do, and follow your bliss. Money is good, but secondary. Later on, I learned the same thing from Mohandas Gandhi, though he applied it to the search for truth. There is one immutable truth. There is no one immutable truth, like, say, your career path. And it is not always obvious which one that is. There's only your truth. And it may be a different truth at different times in the course of your life. The art is to listen and to look for it. So while you may feel that your truth is to become a doctor or an engineer, a scientist, a financial analyst, do follow it by all means. But remain open to the possibility of another truth waiting just across the wall. At some point of time, a truth that invites you to change course. I'm not here to confuse you, especially not at this threshold and while celebrating this important rite of passage. I realize that you are about to embark on for the first time probably in your life on a more focused course in your life, which demands your own decisions and choices. For the first time perhaps, after a youth dictated by decisions taken by parents, mentors, teachers. All I want you to do is reserve one tiny room in the large house that is your mind, in which you keep this thought, that there is always a life beyond the boundaries of job, profession, social relationships, places. I said earlier that we called our block in boarding school the box. It's a word that says it all. Once, much later, when I was doing linguistic research, I came across an American study that had measured the positive or negative load or psychological meaning of words. Words like cool, proper, cute. Someone who used or heard them, did he associate positive feelings, negative ones, and how positive or negative were they? One of the words was thinking out of the box. It had a high positive correlation among most of the respondents, much stronger than words like clever, intelligent, smart. I remembered our box then and thought that maybe I had done the right thing when I jumped out of the box. Even if I fell on my face sometimes, or saw a monk appearing out of the blue when climbing the ladder, or was almost caught once in a TV camera. To tell you what I mean, let me end this little sermon with reading out an ad for an organization called Lend a Hand India. It was founded by an Indian couple in Pune. They gave up a lucrative career with Citibank and one of the big four American consulting companies. They had stayed in New York. They came back and started a social business, namely a curriculum course for skill building in government primary schools. the organization is growing rapidly, and they are looking for managers. So they put out this ad, and I just want to read it to you. We want you if, 1, you have taken a risk and failed. 2, you made something happen against all odds. 3, and I think these are not and, but or. You have studied in one field and have made a career in a completely different field. 4, you think that nothing is rocket science, except, of course, rocket science. You are the first person in generations to go to high school. 6, you went against your parents' wishes to do something, and the rest of the world thought you were crazy. 7, no matter what was the financial conditions of your parents, you managed to make some money before you turned 18. 8, your mission statement is, I will figure it out. 9, you think that no work is beneath you, including cleaning restrooms. 10, you can laugh at your failures. Finally, you can calculate 18 multiplied by 16 without a calculator. The ad still runs. My friends from Lend a Hand tell me, in case any of you is interested, you can meet me outside the hall. To all of you, I wish Godspeed and welcome to the world of crossing boundaries. Thank you.